What's up, everybody? It's Young here, and welcome to my review of Captain America: Civil War. So this has obviously been a very highly anticipated movie, and after the disappointment that was Batman v Superman, a lot of people were looking towards Civil War to sort of satisfy their desire for a good superhero movie of epic proportions, and guess what? Civil War delivers and then some. I mean, it is literally the best superhero movie I have seen yet, and it is definitely, for me, the best Marvel movie that the company has ever produced. And I know there might be varying opinions on this. I know a lot of people loved Winter Soldier. Like, my brother still considers that to be the best Marvel movie, but for me, Civil War just kind of edges it out because of its great balance of amazing action sequences, of epic proportions featuring a shit ton of heroes, along with a surprisingly great story. So as the title hints at, Captain America: Civil War is about the internal conflict among the heroes within the Avengers, and it also deals with themes that are very similar to Batman v Superman, you know, stuff about the consequences and ramifications of having these superhumans, these enhanced humans, going amok, unchecked, doing their own thing. Is it a force of good or is it a force of destruction? Questions like that are raised, and that sort of contributes a lot into the internal conflict within the Avengers, more specifically the conflict between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. Now, what's funny is that despite the similarities to Batman v Superman, Civil War handles everything the exact opposite way. It's almost like a foil to Batman v Superman, and that's not a bad thing. Civil War is definitely brighter, it's less gritty and grim, it's far less pretentious, and it's also simpler, and I mean that in a very good way. Sometimes simple is good. You won't get any convoluted evil plans here. The conflict and the sort of the evil villain's plot, so to speak, is actually very simply laid out. It's very simple what he is attempting to achieve, and despite the simplicity, there's actually a lot of depth in there as well. I know a lot of people associate Marvel movies as sort of mindless popcorn flicks, you know, movies that you go see just for the action and just to watch heroes duke it out and stuff. And a lot of people excuse Batman v Superman's lacklusterness because at least it tries to be philosophical, and at least it tries to be deep, and it tries to touch upon these heavy themes and what have you. Well, yeah, Civil War blows that notion out of the water. Civil War has the grim moments, it has the deep themes, the complex characters, and it has all the great signs of just good storytelling. The difference is, of course, that Civil War actually executes everything very competently. Again, it's just simple, unpretentious, and touches upon all the right ideas and emotions in just the right beats. And what's great about Civil War is that it's actually very focused. It lays out a couple of themes and focuses on that for the entire movie, and you can see that very clearly, unlike Batman v Superman, where it just sort of, it's everywhere, you know? It has multiple storylines, and it never lets one quite develop, and it never quite lets you care about one particular storyline because there's just so much going on, and they're trying to present so many themes and ideas in your face, and there's just so much convoluted shit going on, where Civil War just, again, keeps things simple, focused, just touches upon a couple of things and does those couple of things really well. It's sort of quality over quantity. The entire movie focuses on the idea of civil war and the chain of events, as well as the varying ideals and the different opinions that can lead to such an event, except this time it is among sort of enhanced, superpowered humans. And while you may agree with one side more than another, the movie does a relatively good job in establishing why each side believes in what they believe, why they side with that specific side, and why they fight for that specific side. So the whole conflict feels earned, and it doesn't resolve with just Martha, you know? So the movie just builds up this conflict in a manner that feels very natural, that feels, again, like it's earned, like it makes sense that things turned out the way they did. You truly feel as though this movie makes the Avengers take a sort of hard look at themselves and to look at a mirror and make them reflect upon who they are, what they represent, what they believe in, and the payoff is just simply brilliant. I mean, the way the movie ends, in my opinion, it's awesome. These actually feel like human beings, you know? Oftentimes you watch a superhero movie, all you see is the superhero. In this movie, you actually get to see the people behind the masks and the suits, and you get this feeling that, yeah, these are human beings with their own inner conflicts and inner demons, and in this movie, you see them reflect upon some of those things. So Civil War isn't just about the great action sequences, it has the emotional and human moments that actually make this movie also a great drama. And you know, it's funny, I mentioned before quality over quantity, and that seems like a crazy thing to say when you consider just how many heroes are represented in this movie and how many of those heroes you get to see in action at the same time. But oddly enough, it doesn't feel overbloated. Each hero is given just the right amount of time that they need to be on screen to shine, and every hero gets a moment to shine in this 2.5-hour span, and it's just awesome. I was pleasantly surprised by how all the heroes were balanced while giving Captain America and Iron Man, or Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, the spotlight, because in the end, it is pretty much about those two entities and their conflict. That is the main conflict, but all these other characters, you see them on screen, and while many of them weren't necessarily necessary, they were clearly added in there for, I guess, some of the eye candy or just to have heroes there, you still feel like the movie was better off for it because they all add a little bit of spice to the movie. They all add a little bit of extra little flavor that just makes this movie shine. Black Panther was a huge highlight of this movie. Ant-Man just surprised me with, I don't want to spoil it, but just suffice to say that Ant-Man had a big shining moment in this movie. And of course we have Spider-Man, and I had my doubts when I first saw him unveiled. I wasn't a particularly big fan of his suit, and I still think that Amazing Spider-Man 2's Spider-Man suit is the best one, but once you see the suit in action, it actually looks really, really good. And this Peter Parker, this Spider-Man, they nailed it. This is the Spider-Man that I sort of envisioned. When you say the word Spider-Man, this is the Spider-Man that I personally envisioned. He has just the right amount of sassiness and smart-assness, while also having a good balance of kindness and playfulness. And it's just the perfect Peter Parker. Marvel knows their source material, and they cast Spider-Man perfectly, and you see just enough of him to get a taste of what he'll be like, and he's gonna be awesome. I cannot wait for Spider-Man Homecoming. And of course, I can't wait for the Black Panther movie, and I just can't wait for all the movies that are coming from Marvel. Something else that I liked about Spider-Man is that they didn't make him overpowered. You can tell that he is a powerful entity with, you know, his crazy reflexes, with his arachnic powers, and his incredible just power, basically. You know, like you saw in that clip, literally stopped Winter Soldier's punch just with one arm casually, and he said, "Wow, a metal arm, that's so cool." Like, you can tell this man is very powerful, but the movie balances that out with inexperience. You can tell that this Spider-Man is just starting out. You can tell that he's out of his depth at this moment and that he's still learning the ropes, and that's really cool to see. He's still young and learning, and that's a perfect setup because Spider-Man just became a Marvel property, and we'll finally get to see an appropriate Marvel Spider-Man movie, which is very exciting. Now let's talk about the main villain for a second, Zemo. I hear some people are disappointed with the character, and that might be the case if you expected sort of a direct comic to movie translation of the character, but you're just not going to get that with this movie. What you'll get instead is a villain that fulfills his purpose to the themes of the movie. You initially feel as though Zemo is just sort of, oh, he has some kind of evil plan, and it feels almost like a separate plot line to the internal conflict between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers and just the entire Avengers, basically. It feels like two separate storylines starting out, and then they sort of converge, and the way they tie in his storyline with what's happening with the Avengers, I think, is brilliant. I think Zemo, I wouldn't even call Zemo the main villain. I wouldn't even say there is a main villain in this movie. I would say Zemo is sort of a means to an end, and he just basically further amplifies and highlights sort of the problems of having these superheroes running amok unsupervised, and he further highlights the theme of internal conflict, of civil war, of revenge, and a lot of these things that are highlighted in this movie very clearly. So that's all I'll say about that. Suffice to say that Zemo does fulfill a very interesting purpose, and I think he's actually very compelling. I think he's the most compelling villain, one of the most compelling villains I've seen in a Marvel movie. He's not just I'm gonna take over the world. He also feels like a human being with his own conflicts, with his own inner demons, and that has an effect on the entire plotline in the same way that the superheroes or the people within the superheroes, the people behind the mask and the suits, the same way their inner conflicts have an effect on the entire story and plot of this particular movie. So Zemo, I actually really, really loved. But of course, it wouldn't be a superhero blockbuster movie from Marvel if you didn't have your epic, awesome action sequences. And let me tell you, every action sequence in this movie is pretty much immaculate. I loved every single one of them. Not one of them were underwhelming. And the one we need to talk about is the airport battle scene. Holy shit, guys. Holy shit. That airport battle scene was the best action sequence in a superhero movie that I have ever seen. I mean, that battle sequence was a dream come true. It was an extensive, just fucking war between like a bunch of superheroes just in one, and each one is utilized so well. You see each of them do their thing. You can see each talent shine, and it is just epic. I don't want to spoil it, but suffice to say that you will love it. And what I love about what Marvel did is that they didn't spoil a big part of that in the trailers like Batman v Superman did. A big problem that I had with that movie is that if you watched all of the trailers, you pretty much knew all the beats of the movie. Not so with Civil War. You watch all the trailers and you still haven't seen shit. You will still be surprised. You will still find moments that'll shock you or awe-inspire you. It is, oh god. And Spider-Man, seeing him in action alongside all these other heroes like we have seen in the animated series, we have finally seen a great live-action adaptation of heroes just going at it together at the same time, or in this case, against each other, and just the most epic superhero battle I've ever seen. My inner 5-year-old came out, and I was giddy. I was nerding off like you've never seen me before. It was amazing. My jaw was all the way down here the whole time, and it was glorious. That's all I'll say about that. Frankly, the airport battle scene alone makes this movie worth watching, but fortunately, it's not just that. There is also, again, all these other great things with the story and the action and the balance and the characters that makes this just, for me, the most well-balanced, the greatest package that Marvel has produced yet. I'm actually a little scared for Marvel. I don't quite know how they're gonna top this one. But then again, stuff like Infinity War, the stakes are even higher. You've got even more pieces at play, and so maybe they can once again surprise us and balance all that out and bring out a good story along with that. That is more than just, guys, there's a bad guy, we have to go save the world. there are actually human elements in this movie, relatable elements in this movie that I think should be a staple in every superhero story. It shouldn't just be about the super elements, but also about the human elements. I feel like the hero side of things has to do more with what the person chooses to do more than the fact that they have superpowers. You know what I mean? I feel like superhuman are two words that are very important separately. There's the super side of things, and then there's the human side of things. And that's what Civil War brings to light. They also bring to light the human, not just the super. And I hope from here on out, every Marvel movie tries to capture that like Civil War did. So there you have it, folks. That's pretty much everything I need to say about this movie without spoiling it. Thank you for tuning in. You will love this movie, I'm sorry. Maybe you won't think it's the best Marvel movie like I do. I think so, and I think a lot of other people do. But you just will love this movie. There's no way you can't like this movie, in my opinion. I think there's just very few flaws that I can think of. Frankly, I can't think of any flaws right now because as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking I want to go watch it again because it was just so freaking great. So definitely go watch it. Highly recommended. Do yourself a favor, watch this movie. You will not regret it. And after you watch the movie, let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the movie. I would love to discuss and hear other people's opinions because I'm sure they will vary because that's just the way opinions work. And to be further updated on more movie reviews, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.